Welcome back. Several weeks ago, U.S. authorities charged an Afghan immigrant, his father, and a Queens, New York resident as part of an operation to prevent another terrorist attack in New York City. The arrest raised fears about sleeper terrorist cells here in the U.S. Joining us now to discuss those fears and other security issues facing the U.S. is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano. Madam Secretary, welcome to Bloomberg News.
Well, thank you.
Ma'am, update us about the Zazi case. How concerned are you about terrorist sleeper cells in this country?
Well, without talking specifically about Zazi, I think it is fair to say that there are individuals in the United States who ascribe to al-Qaeda type beliefs, and so it makes information sharing, it makes effective law enforcement, and it makes the shared responsibility of law enforcement ever so important.
How critical is the information sharing? Because there have been criticism in the past that the left didn't know what the right was doing, and I don't mean that in political terms. I mean, you have federal, state, and local governments not all on the same page. Has that changed at all?
Yeah, I think it's so much improved since prior to 9/11. In this case or in other cases, you have the Department of Homeland Security providing information, you have the FBI, you have sharing with state and local, and in fact, that's one of the things that's gone right in this matter and in other matters.
And when you look at what's happened since 9/11 and the lack of other attacks here in the U.S., do you ascribe that to improved cooperation and other law enforcement and federal measures, or do you think that there haven't been that many attempts? I mean, where's the balance there?
You know, that's really hard to say because it's so difficult to measure a negative. But as we move forward, we know that the need to protect the United States, the homeland, as it were, from attack from whatever the source, international or domestic, is always with us. It's an ever-changing threat environment. Americans need to be prepared for that, and with that, it's a shared responsibility. And then to know that we can respond effectively and be very resilient if something were to occur.
Madam Secretary, you brought up an interesting point. Have Americans been lulled into a false sense of security because there has not been another attack?
I don't know about that, but what I would say is that every American has a role they can play. If they see a strange backpack left unattended at a bus stop, to report it. If they see someone taking pictures of key infrastructure, report it so that law enforcement can follow up appropriately.
Also, some experts have talked about potential security threats related to the financial crisis, which is obviously what we talk about frequently here. Sure. What threats do you see? What kind of risk is that?
In fact, I just met with a number of leaders in financial security right here in New York City, and it's about protecting our nation's infrastructure. It also has an international dimension. One of the particular applications, of course, is the cybersecurity that surrounds our financial institutions, and making sure that that they are prepared and can prevent attack and can respond quickly should there be a cyber attack.
But, Madam Secretary, that's a fine line, because you want to prevent an attack, but at the same time, you don't want to infringe on Americans' rights. And we should point out that there's a bill that was introduced back in May. It would allow the president to shut down parts of the internet in an emergency. That's a very fine line.
These are judgments that need to be made, and they need to be informed by good intelligence, good information. That's why that is really the foundation of making these very difficult decisions. And you're right, they can be a fine line. Privacy, obviously, is a key concern. Data collection and privacy, a key concern. But on the other hand, the financial institutions of this country are part of our bedrock infrastructure, and they need to be protected, and we need to be able to work with them to protect them.
Well, and there have been breakdowns already in that security, not necessarily from terrorists or other nations, but from folks who are looking to steal money and steal identities. So how urgent do you think this problem is, and what exactly needs to be done to beef up that security?
Well, the whole issue of identity management is something I think that's of key concern. Indeed, when I was Attorney General of Arizona, I think we formed one of the first cybersecurity units to prosecute those types of cases. But it is a key ongoing concern and will be one of our top priorities moving forward.
Talk to us about immigration. There are concerns. There was a there's a law that allows federal authorities to deputize local authorities if we're talking about immigration reform or catching illegal immigrants. The New York Times came out with an op-ed today, and it was pretty critical of that law. Do you ascribe to that law? You're the former governor of Arizona. How did that work out?
Yeah, I wish I could agree with that editorial, but I just can't.
Is there a danger of profiling, though?
It has to be 287G is the law that you're referring to, and it was not being properly, I think, used before. It didn't have enough limits. It didn't have measurements. It was not accountable. We have redone those agreements with law enforcement, but for example, most of the agreements we have are with those who operate jails to do immigration checks of those already in jails, and that relieves our own federal agents, allows them to focus on violent criminal aliens, for example, who may be fugitives in our streets.
Yeah.